Live. Hello and welcome to another episode of You Only Peaceful Live, Season 2, powered by Inside IM. I'm your host, Akshay Sirsalewala. I'm a chartered accountant. I've cleared all levels of CFA and I graduated from IM Codicode. I'm currently working with BCG and I've been associated with Inside IM since 2018 now. Great to have you all back. Today, what we'll discuss is how to make a career, how to get a top job in general management on campus. And to help us answer that, we have two very distinguished guests with us. Uh, the third one will also join soon. Hopefully, she's joining in from Thailand. So big cheers to her for that. So let's start with Naman. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks Akshay for having me here. Hello guys, my name is Namanjan. I graduated from IMK last year in 2021. I have been working in TAS. It's been 1 year here. Currently, I'm working with Taj Hotels. Before that, I had a background in commerce and chartered accountancy. Um, Looking forward to having a great fruitful session for you all guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Naman. So Naman, I think, has come on the show for the third or fourth time. So he's on retainer for this for this show. Thanks again. Over to you, Jay.
Thanks, Akshay. Hi, everyone. I am Jay. I completed my MBA from SMHRD Pune in 2020. Have been associated with Reliance right after campus. Worked on four different businesses of Reliance. Currently, I'm product managing the IoT products at Geo Platforms. During my MBA, I was fortunate to win over 14 business competitions. So you can ask me questions on that as well. Looking forward to an amazing session.
Thank you, Jay, once again. You're coming on the show for the second time. So once again, thank you so much. So guys, if you see, we have someone from Tata, we have someone from Reliance, and we have someone from Mahindra, right? The top three corporate houses of India. And I mean, literally one of the dream jobs on campus. And what we'll do is throughout the webinar, we'll answer all your questions regarding how to make the perfect Genman CV. What kind of skills do companies look for? What is the interview process? What kind of questions do they ask? All of these will be answered. So stay tuned. And if you have any queries, please do mention in the chat box. We'll be more than happy to take it up. Guys, so let's start with the very basic question. What exactly is general management? I mean, what is the normal structure of these profiles? And I mean, can you just shed some light on what exactly do you do in these roles?
Now, you want to go?
Sure. So I very straightforward. General management is a role that allows you that flexibility to explore various roles in the start and then settle down in a particular role or particular industry that you like. For example, in TAS program and in other leadership programs as well. And the first year you have four different stints in multiple industries across multiple domains. So I had my first stint in it was a product role in Tata Steel, then a category role in Tata Click, then an operation role in Tata AIA, and then again a strategy role in Taj Hotels. So across the chains, multiple industries, multiple domains, which help me analyze what kind of industry do I like, what kind of domain do I like. It gives me that flexibility to explore, and then I settle down a particular role. So this is what I'd say general management. It's not about a general role for the life, but that flexibility which allows you to explore, to settle down in a particular role in life.
That's wonderful. So just talking about your experience. So you said you were with Tata Steel, Tata Click, Tata AIA, and Taj Hotels, which is quite diverse. But was your role in one domain only? Like, were you in marketing, let's say, in all the four, or finance in all the four, or is it
No.
different for?
It was different. It was product operations, strategy, category management. It varied across teams. But that's the beauty of general management programs.
Wonderful, great. Jay, what about you? How was your experience?
Yeah. So similar to what Naman said, at Reliance, we have this program, which is the Reliance Emerging Leaders Program. So in that, we have two different stints in the first year, 6 months each, and then eventually you can choose your final role. So I was taking care of the marketing division for Geo World Center in my first stint. So that was very much core marketing, core branding. This is a new vertical that is coming up. In my second stint, I was product managing software products of Geo IoT. And currently I'm managing both software and hardware products at Geo IoT. So a very varied experience with respect to the number of products that I've managed and the number of the different types of roles that I've handled. Few of my peers at Reliance have also been fortunate to be part of all the three businesses. So the hydrocarbons, the retails, and the geos. So
Right.
in that way, you have a diverse of industry and diverse of roles. So that way.
Right. So basically, in your short stint, you've been part of the marketing team, the product management team, and the software team, which is great because you normally don't get this kind of diversity in many other roles, and I think that's what makes general management so interesting and such a dream role on campus.
See, when you are out of campus, you might think that you are the branding person, but eventually, when you get on the field, you understand that this is not cup of your tea, and maybe something else interests you. So
Right,
when you
right.
have a good exposure of 4 to 5 roles, you will know what is your calling eventually.
Right, and just one thing, right? So because it's so diverse, and for the first 2 years you can be working anywhere, do you make the decision of where you want to go finally? I mean, can you say that, boss, in let's say for Naman, you can say कि यार मुझे ताज में काम करना है. Can you say that, or is it still the decision of the management?
So it's a demand and supply game. If Taj wants you and you want Taj, then it's a perfect match, I'd say.
Right.
So that's how it works. But it's more about getting the broad idea of what kind of industry, what kind of company you want to work in. For example, I got a good idea that I want to work in a startup like company inside Tata Group. So I interned at Tata Click, and that gave me a fair idea because things there were fast and frugal, and I really liked that. And that's
Right.
why I applied in the final process to startup like companies like 1MG, Big Basket, Click, all these companies. And that I had this broad idea from this first year, and that's what matters.
But interesting use of word, you said that you applied. So is there like an interview at the, let's say,
It's not really an interview. It's again a demand and supply game. So for a batch of 38 TAS folks in my batch, we had about 130 roles open. So it's not those these school worries about placements and all.
right,
It's a ratio of 4 roles to one person. So it's really cool in that matter. It's about what choice do you want to have in while applying. So you apply to say 5 roles at first. So I applied to say 5 different companies. Yeah, I even applied to Air India. So now Air India is now part of Tata Group. I applied to roles at Air India as well. So in that terms, I mean, good roles do really open, and it's about your choice in which companies do you want to apply in.
perfect.
And
And is it the same for you, Jay?
Very similar actually. So in your first stint, you are given a role, based on your CV and based on what you have. But eventually, for your second stint, you can always look for the type of roles that have been offered, and you can always express your inclination. So if I'm
Right,
more inclined towards product roles at Geo, I would give a heads up to the hiring manager that this is what I'm looking at.
right,
Yeah, there's not 100% surety that you'll get it, but there's always an ask given to you to choose what type of roles and what type of business you want. And eventually, for the final role, which is also called a stint three, you get to choose your role and you get to choose your background. So and then we have a very slight interview process for that. So couple of JDs are floated, and then you can prioritize them and you can get into them. But very importantly, the brand looks at your inclination and your skill sets before giving your role.
got it. Right. Okay. So let's move on to the next question. Now, uh, the the first thing which comes to my, the first question which most people have is, yeah, is it okay if you are a fresher? Is it okay if you have XYZ years of work experience? If I'm not wrong, I think Naman, you are a fresher, correct? And Jay, I think you have 1 year work experience.
Yeah.
Right. So, you both have been in different spectrums, you can say. What is your experience? Do you really think that they prefer freshers or with work ex, or there is as such, I mean, there is no defined criteria? I mean, what is your opinion on that?
So Akshay, I'll give you a real life example. One of the bigger brand had come on campus, and they had two roles. One was for engineering folks with 2 years experience, and one was for non-engineers with zero number of experience.
Right.
So with the same brand and the same role, they had diverse openings. So
Okay.
I
Right.
don't think people need to worry too much on the background. I mean, the same brand can give you the same role with respect to your profile. So that way.
Got it. Naman, anything you want to add here?
So with respect to German programs, I don't really think there is any bias in terms of work or in terms of background also. I'd say in my batch, I have people from psychology background as well, leave alone commerce and engineering. So I really don't think, I mean, a background is any barrier, and work also. So, I mean, I was fortunate enough to got in as fresher, and they hire a lot of freshers. In fact, I think 4 out of 5 people from our college were freshers. But in the batch as a whole, if you'll see, there is a good mix of people from work as I had as high as 5 years, I'd say.
Right. So you mean to say everyone has a fair chance,
Right.
irrespective of the years of work ex. And also interestingly, I think you come from a commerce background and Jay comes from an engineering background, and both of you were able to back top 10-man jobs. So basically, it's open for all, literally.
Yes.
Great.
Also, Akshay, one thing here, whenever the industry or the brand has come on campus, they look at your willingness to work. So when we say prodman roles are not very technical because they deal with a lot of technology and a lot of softwaring and programming. People assume that this is technical. Because I don't have an IT background, I might not be able to do it. That's a very bad thought process. I mean, prodman roles are technical, but then if you have the willingness to learn, I don't think you can have a problem.
Great. And just recently, I met a chartered accountant who has an AI company. So even if you are from a non-tech background, I'm sure you can develop those skills if you have a knack for it. Great, guys. So let's move on to the next important question, which is, what are the skills these companies are looking for? So if I give you some examples, I mean, if I talk about finance, so finance roles normally look for people with an analytical bent of mind. Consulting people, I think, look for people who are smooth talkers, who can lie through their teeth, I think. And what are the qualities that GenMan companies are looking for? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the first one is problem solver. You will be thrown up in a situation where you have to make decisions based on the limited information that you have. Secondly, you have to be a very good listener because a GenMan, irrespective of the industry and the role he's part of, he will always be communicating a lot of folks. And if you misread or listen something, you might be in soup.
Right.
And then you have to show your leadership across your time at the firm, because if you can't take decisions, I think that will not help you grow in your career.
Right. Basically, you are saying 3 major skills are needed: problem solving, ability to listen, and leadership skills. Great. What about you, Naman? What do you think?
So I'd really, second on this problem solving skills, they really look for it. Apart from it, I believe the other skills that they look for are, the person being flexible enough and willing to learn. Because Genman is all about being flexible and seeing what works best for you, and being adaptable in that sense. So that's another skill I'd like to add.
Also, talking about flexibility and these things. So I know that a lot. I mean, I think Tata has a major presence in Jamshedpur. I think Reliance also has major presence in rural area, right? Jamnagar, exactly. And there, so is it expected that you could be sent to these places as well to work? And I mean, is that a problem for most people? What are your views?
I think, Akshay, it is a good thing that you get an exposure to go to these places and learn. And not just work from home. I mean, if I were given a choice, I would travel to all the places where Reliance is and look how the businesses is working. The more you travel, the more you understand people's perspective and the way the leadership is running that particular business.
Exactly. I'd say the same thing. I mean, if I get a chance to work in Jamshedpur, because I mean, these are not just a factory set up in those areas. This is a whole township developed by the company, having that ecosystem all together working at one place. I think it's a great opportunity to work there, I'd say.
Perfect.
Also, one advice I would want to give to the listeners is that always be ready to get out of your comfort zone. And try to do things which you haven't done before, because I think that's the only way you'll understand that this is something which you are good at and this is something which you are not good at. Good to make mistakes at the early stage of the career, actually.
Absolutely, completely agree with you, Jay. You should make mistakes early on, because later on, if you make mistakes, you
It will
might even
cost
get
a lot.
fired. Right. Great, guys. One more thing. Uh, what I've heard, one more thing which I've heard is that sometimes what happens is obviously because you are part of these leadership programs which are very cream, which are premium, so you do get a sort of preferential treatment also in companies. So do you ever see a resistance from other employees, maybe who worked there for 5, 6 years, 10 years? Has that been a problem? And I see a smile on both of your faces, so I'm very interested to know the answer.
I'll be honest here. So Akshay, when an RELP is coming up with a plan or for a strategizing, a specific offering, the leadership takes a keen interest in the deck that has been prepared, or the plan
Right.
that has been prepared. So in that way, the rejection is very low, and a lot of focus is given to the outputs that we want to share. I think that is a very easy path for us to grow and talk to leaders directly.
Right.
Right.
Comparing that to a 24-year-old who is not from these programs will have a tough time.
Got it. Right.
And,
Anything?
and prima facie, there is a lot of respect also from other employees, I'd say, because people really do believe that when you come from a certain program, and which is in fact very seen as something really good inside that company. For example, say the TAS program is really looked forward by all in-house employees, and people say, "Oh, this guy is from TAS," so they expect a certain standard of work, and they have good expectations from you. So I think in that sense, I mean, it's a really good responsibility, and you get a good respect, I'd say.
Got it.
Also, the flip side is you're expected to do a lot of things, work under
Right.
pressure, and deliver continuously. So, and you have to live up to their expectation, which is something hard at times.
Reminds me of the saying कि ऐसे बोलते थे 10th के बाद 90 आ गए तो लाइफ सेट है, फिर
ऐसे
12th के
ऐसे
बाद सेट है, IIM में चले गए फिर लाइफ सेट है, अभी कंपनी में आने के बाद भी we are still struggling. Great. Guys, thank you so much for that. Let's move on to the next question. Just one last thing. You were saying that there are stints, right? So after a 6-month stint, is it so? When I talk about an internship program, normally what happens is at the end you give a deck to the to the management, or maybe show what are the findings, etc. So do you guys also have to do that? Then after the end of 6 months, or let's say 1 year, whatever the stint period is, you have to give a presentation stating what you learned, etc., etc. Or what were your findings? What were you able to implement? Does that also happen?
So at Reliance, things are different for each business unit. So if your business unit is looking at recommendations and your outputs of the project, then you showcase. However,
Right.
if you're into a project which is already has been going since a very long time, you deliver your offerings to the product. So you don't have to necessarily showcase what you have done, because it is a continuous process where you deliver something every other day that way. But if it is more of a research project or something of a planning stage, you are expected to show deck.
Okay.
Yeah, I think same thing. This depends a lot on tool. If your recommendations had to have a long-term impact, and it's a Bible document where the management will refer to while deciding for the future course of action, then I think we give a deck. If it's a role where along with we implement all those things, and I mean, like in my current stint, I'm continuously implementing what I'm recommending, so you don't need a deck for that purpose.
Right. Okay, guys. Now let's talk about the meat of because majorly students would be interested in this. How to get into such roles? What is the interview process like? Or, how is the CV shortlist? How does the CV shortlisting happen? How do you prepare for such roles? So let's start with the first step in the entire process, which is making a CV. Right? You both have been in the school. You know how rigorously we prepare our CV. Any tips for these for the people who are looking at this webinar? And maybe what we can do is either you can give me some general tips, or what we can do is, if you want to break it into 4 sections, we can also do that, which is academics, work experience, positional responsibility, and extracurriculars. So guys, any tips or any suggestions you have for the people watching this?
So overall, I think they look for an well-rounded CV, not very heavy on some particular section. But since genuine role is more about being flexible and trying multiple things, they look for the background where you have tried multiple things and good on extracurriculars, good on PORs, good on academics as well, I'd say. So I mean, they look for a really well-rounded CV and not really heavy on some particular section.
Perfect. Perfect. So, just coming back to you on that. So I know for a fact that finance companies are very, very stringent on कि marks अच्छा आना चाहिए. ठीक है? And even consulting companies. So do you say the same for Genman or not really? I mean, they're not that. They don't want
I don't really think so. I was a 7-pointer in my college. I don't think so. That's
right.
I think actually it is good to have good grades. That could act as a first filter, when you get into a company's process. But eventually, when you're in the case study discussion or when you're in your final PI, they look at a full, balanced CV where you have your point of responsibility, where you have your live projects, where you talk about the times when you have been a leader and have done things. Where you also talk about your internship experience, before your MBA. So look at all areas, and they expect that you touch on all areas rather than just being focused on, say, extracurriculars.
Great. So basically, the main takeaway from this is you need a very well balanced CV. They look at all sections, not just on one or two sections. Right. So let's also talk about competitions because, as you know, I think Naman got into TAS through a case competition. Jay, you won 14 plus, as you said, 14 competitions on campus. And if I remember correctly, Naman, I think you had many case competitions even before you came to campus, if I remember correctly. So, guys, how important are case competitions? I mean, what kind of do they add a lot of value according to you? What are your views?
I think with respect to learning, immense. Even if you don't win competition, it is fine. The more competitions you do, the more cases you look at, you develop, a sense of breaking bigger problems into smaller problems and trying to figure a solution, revolving that. So, like during my first year of MBA, I did not win one single competition, and eventually in second, I won all of them. So, because I was very rigorous in the garage, working on myself and improving my skills, it takes time, but then eventually we're there. And then the more important is the more competitions you do, the more you understand the problems that you face at a company, and all these are real life competition. Sorry, real life cases.
Right.
So very similar to what the company is facing.
Right. So you're saying that even if it doesn't help you in your CV, it will help you in the interview because you learned so many things from the.
Yeah. Also, it helps you when you start working because you have similar problems at work, and you can always design a solution for that problem.
And sometimes it also helps you make some money on the side, which is needed.
Oh yes, definitely. And the recognition you get at your college. Yeah.
100%. I remember there were few people who used to be very popular in college because her case competition वो लोग जीतते थे. I'm sure it must be the case in all the colleges. Right, Naman. So I think you would be one of them, Jay. Right?
Yeah, true.
Yes, Naman. You were saying something.
Yeah. So I mean, case competitions are definitely a cherry on the cake. I'd say in B school, specifically in B school, if you'll see in this MBA program, case competition forms a very major part of it. I say in terms of your learning experience. So there is a certain set of academic learning that you have in college, but the immediate chance to implement that as either your internship or some life projects, and case competition is definitely one of that part. And if not just problem solving skills is what you develop, it's all about it's about the hard skills like PPT skills, so to say, or say the people management skills, how you manage your team and work together. So I mean, it's definitely a plus case having doing multiple case competitions, and it obviously opens the PPI and PP opportunities as well.
Also, one unsaid thing about case competition, it always helps you to network. You network with your batchmates, you network with the seniors, and even your professors. So then you showcase what you have to offer, and they tell you, maybe this is something that you can improve on. So that gives you a relation of lifetime, I guess.
Right. And another thing is that many of the people have this myth that first year में तो summers कर लेते हैं and then second year से case competition start करेंगे, but you're already late for the race in that case. in first year, you may not win case competitions, but you'll get a decent exposure to them and you'll realize your mistakes and you'll fail, but you'll fail fast. So that in
Right.
second year, you can win multiple, as Jay said, that he started winning in second year.
Right. Guys, I'll just take a bit of a pause here. Hi, Kanika, can you hear us?
Hi, Akshay. I can hear you.
Hey, welcome, Kanika. Would you mind introducing yourself to the people watching?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Kanika, and I'm a recent graduate from IIM Kozhikode. I just completed my MBA in 2022. Before that, I've completed my civil engineering from Delhi College of Engineering, and post that, I have worked in Hilti in sales. So that was a B2B consultative sales role for about a year. And now I'll be joining Mahindra GMC program, and I have received a PPO from the same. So yeah, that's mostly about me.
And thank you for joining us from Thailand. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Actually, I would have loved to be like a part of it from the beginning, but I'm having some network issues.
Right.
But yeah, I'm really glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Perfect, no problem. So what we are discussing is basically the importance of case competitions. So two very important points raised by Naman and Jay. What Naman said is people management skills. I think very, very important. I remember when you are doing a case competition, you have to realize that you have to make teams with not your friends, but with people who will be relevant to the case. So I think that is something which a very good skill even on even when you are working, that you will have your close colleagues, but there are some projects where you will need other people who are more maybe equipped to handle that problem. And second thing, which you mentioned, Jay, which is networking, a chance to network. I mean, very, very strong point, because I remember going to few professors, asking for their inputs, talking to a few seniors, which maybe I would not have normally spoken to because they had won that case competition. So good place to network. Kanika, what do you think? I mean, how important are case competitions, or do you have any in general CV tips for students, so that they can
Sure.
get their dream general
So
shortlist?
I think I totally agree with that. I mean, even the case competitions which I have won or which I have done and really enjoyed are the ones where I networked with people who had very different backgrounds from me, and
Right.
mostly they were not engineers. They had people in completely different kind of undergraduation they had. So and that provided like a completely different kind of skill set. You know,
Right.
uh, and especially one thing I learned a lot is that I am the kind of person who usually used to look into research or maybe like more of online searching and more of bookish knowledge. But
Right.
here, like when I saw people, they used to immediately think of who is the right person who can give you the same information which you would get in 5 hours on the internet in 15 minutes over a call. And that's a very important networking skill to have, that just look on LinkedIn and connect with alums and connect with people who are in the company, and they'll give you completely different perspective which really provides the insight that you really need to crack the case. So that was
Right.
something that I really learned and which helped me a lot. And as far as CV tips, I would say, I mean, yeah, of course, case competitions help a lot. Personally, I did not win any case competitions in my first year, so I didn't have much to contribute there. But
Mm.
in second year, I did win like 4 to 5 things. But by that time, I already had a PPO in hand. But the important thing which worked for me in my CV was that balancing all your different sections of your CV, right? So be it academics, be it PORs, be it your internships and certifications, or be it your work ex, you
Mm.
need to have almost equivalent
Right.
points in all the different sections, because that really shows that you're the kind of person who is able to balance things out in life. And that in a gen man role especially, which is very important, because that is something that you will be expected to do. You'll be expected to deal with all different kinds of people, like even in my internship. Sorry about. So even in the internship, like I was talking to people from all the different teams in the company, be it
Right.
marketing, be it finance, be it sales, all the companies I was talking to.
Right.
So that was something, that is something which I would say that you should try to put in your CV, that you are a person who is an all-rounder, who is able to, manage people of all different kinds of places,
Right.
and that you are good at academics as well as people management and time management. So yeah, that's from me.
Great. Thank you, Kanika. And I totally agree with the balancing the CV part. I think Jen Naman also raised the same point. I remember I used to zoom out the CV And I can see the entire page, and then I would see that, acha, sahi lag raha hai na.
So I'd say this on record that Akshay was my mentor for CV in IMK. So I'd second that thought that वो दूर से देखते थे पहले that how are the sections looking, and then he'd go read in between them.
Great. Thanks, Aman. Okay, let's move on to the next question. One of the important ones, which is what is the interview experience like for such companies, and how do you prepare for them? So, I mean, for consulting, you have 3 or 4 rounds of cases. Very clear. For finance, also, we have a sort of similar structure where you are asked about a few companies, maybe, or few industries. What about GenMan? Because what I've heard is GenMan has a lot of interesting games which they make you play at times. So, what was your experience like? We can start with you, Jay, if you want.
Yeah, Akshay. So at Reliance and at few other companies, the first round is the aptitude test, where the questions and the problems are very similar to what we see in CAD and all these entrance exams. So once you get through the first round, then the second round is usually a case discussion and a situation analysis. So you're given a case and you have to showcase your understanding of the case and come up with a solution. Now, one thing people neglect is they don't look at the values of the company. Okay, so I mean, if Reliance has 6 core values and the first one of them is customer experience, so they don't focus on customer experience, they focus on things which are opposite of customer experience. So this is a cheat code. I mean, know the values of the companies you're interviewing for, and try to get into that seat. So always to solve a case study based on the understanding that you're an employee and not a consultant helping that company. So there's always an empathy for your fellow employees. And then the third round is the PI round, where you have been asked questions regarding CV. But I've also seen that your assumptions and your views on the case study from round 2 are also discussed in round 3. Right. So always important to remember your stance and not to change it during a PI.
Lovely tips. I completely agree with you. And values of the company is a very, very good tip, which most people miss out on. But that is the only time you look at the values of the company. I think after joining, you never look at it. Right, Naman.
I'll completely agree to what Jay said. I think values of the company are very important, not just for the process, but for the interview as well. I mean, I have like multiple instances where interview asks some question. You can easily link it to the value of the company, that as one of the 5 values of the company, XYZ. This is how you should do it. So this gives interviewer an idea that this guy really knows the company well. This guy really studied art, and this sets you apart from the rest of the crowd, I'd say. With regard to the process in TAS program, it's a very different process. So we start out with something called NAC games. NAC games is it's a case-based games, and it really tests out the basics of your mental aptitude. Well, it also looks at the values. So Tata Group is well known for trust, authenticity, and integrity and pioneering. So they test out all those skills, and that it's simple to crack if you are honest and relatable to the group. The next is the Chairman GD. Chairman GD, it's famous for being the part of the TAS interview process, because it's a fairly long, complex process where you sit and you have multiple rounds of GDs. I think about 8 rounds or so, where you get into the shoes of multiple roles in a board meeting. So the case is like a board meeting, and every person gets to become a chairman once. So and I'd say most of the people get eliminated in that round. That's like the make or break one. And I'd really say that think like a chairman in that round. Think, what would a chairman do? Don't just blabber around because it's a GD and you want to speak something. Think what a chairman will do. Think how he will give chances to various of the people. Think what will be discussed in a board meeting. So that's really the key to cracking. And then there are 1 or 2 rounds of interview, depending on your profile. And those interviews are not really very technical. It's mostly to see your fit in for the company. How do you fit in the program?
Also, Akshay, if I could add on Naman's game point, I think during the first or the second round at many of these firms, you are given a game sort of case, and you have to design something. So supposing you're supposed to design a car or design a house in a team of 3 and 4. So you have to strategize your resources, you have to put it across, you have to plan it, and then you have to design that in the next 15 minutes.
Right.
Also during that time, situations change, and then you have been asked to do something differently. So when you do this, you have a very limited time, say 15-20 minutes. And the HR is gauging you how you deal with uncertainty during that time, how you deal with lack of information, and how you work under tremendous stress. Because see, at the end of the day, this is an elimination process. You want to be your best. So with a lot of things at stake, how do you deal with that situation? So if you're calm and composed, you have a higher head, upper hand. Yeah.
Right. So I was rejected in the games round itself, so I don't want to discuss it in detail.
So if I would mention about the Mahindra GMC program, the interview process for that. So we also had like one group discussion. It was like a caselet. So they provide like a small caselet that this is an issue which is happening with one of the companies, and you're supposed to provide your solutions. So you get like a couple of minutes to think about the case, and then every person in our time, like since it was like an online process, earlier Mahindra used to have a chairman GD, so they might start having that again. But during the online process, this was the situation that you get a caselet, and then one by one, everyone got to present their solutions. And post that, once the discussion ended, then you're supposed to give like a short summary of what your final decisions on the case would be. And that would, so again, as Naman and Jay also said, that this was the elimination round. And post that, there was a one interview, and that was mostly CV based, at least for me. And they basically try to understand where you come from, what your motivations are, what they really try to understand what kind of person you are, and how you would be able to contribute to all the different industries of Mahindra.
Right.
So I think one suggestion from my side would definitely be that be very aware of what is going on in the company, because usually the caselet would be something which is an actual problem which the company is facing. So if you're already aware of that, then you would already know the solutions as well. And at that point of time, you can really use that time to understand what others are trying to say and contribute there and give your new opinions on that. Right. And similarly for the even for the interview, like they really try to understand whether and whether you're genuinely interested in the company. Because if you are genuinely interested in the company, then you would know that what's going on, what are the industries that you might be interested in, how you can contribute to the same. Because these are things they are not going to explicitly ask you, but if you can somehow mention it in your answers, that really makes the difference.
Perfect. So basically, the major takeaway from what Jay and Kanika both said is that know the values of the company, know what exactly the company is doing, the pain points, etc. Now it's easy to say that the only problem is in a B school, because there are so many companies, you could get limited time, but that's the beauty of it. You will have to manage your time accordingly. And for those companies which are your dream companies like Mahindra, Reliance, or TAS, you should take out some special time and go through what they are doing, etc. Apart from that, some interview rounds which you should be prepared for are chairman GD. I think Mahindra and TAS both do it. So very important round. But I don't think you can you can prepare for it at least before joining the campus. Just appear for the practice sessions by your placement prep committee. Apart from that, you could be faced with some games, small cases, etc. These are and finally a PI which tests which looks at your CV and asks you questions, and just wants to understand whether you will be a right fit for the company. That's normally how the interview flows. So apart from these, do you have any tips on how one can prepare? So he went through the company's website, he understood about the company. Anything else you would want to suggest? I mean, do you think they should practice cases or something like that, or not really needed?
I think individually you should look at cases and you should come up with your own solutions. Go on all these prep sites, download 10 cases, look at the solution that you have. So that is one way of preparing. Second is you share this with your peers, and you start discussing what else can be added and what could be a value addition to these cases.
Right.
So that way you have a 360-degree understanding of this. Yeah, Kanika.
Yes, Kanika.
Sorry, yeah. So I think what really helped me was, one thing you can do is looking at the annual reports of the company, right?
Yeah.
So that gives you a very good idea of what's going on, what's going wrong. And also you can set Google alerts for the companies. In there you can get emails on like suppose you set a Google alert for the word Mahindra, so you will get all the news which is happening relating to Mahindra, so you won't have to go out and necessarily look for that yourself. So you just get it on your mail every day. And
Right.
definitely go through the company websites, like that's a gold mine of information, so definitely you have to go to that.
Perfect. Very interesting.
Also, it's important to talk to peers who have interviewed these companies in the last year and who have gone through the process before.
Exactly.
That is like maximum information you get in the minimum possible time.
Right. So there are some pet questions also which gets repeated mostly in such interviews. For example, in TAS, there is a pet question: which company do you want to join in? Because there are 100 companies, and which company and why? That's what they ask you. I mean, it's really important. This question is really important to see. I mean, they really gauge you in this question that are you really looking for a genuine program, or are you very fixated on some particular role or something? So they really gauge you in that. I think in my preparation for the interview, I divided into three parts. The first part is about the company, say about the Tata Group, the general stuff. I mean, say the companies, the revenues, the numbers, the values, all those things. The second part is about uh, the general knowledge stuff, because in these companies they ask a lot about your opinion, especially in the final round, to
Right.
gauge what's your opinion on certain issues, to gauge your cultural fit for the company. You shouldn't have very extremist views and all those things. So what are the global issues happening? So I remember during my PPO interview they asked me about the US China trade wars. What's your opinion on it, Kamal? And you really have to have a balanced view on it. The third part is really about the HR part of it. Why Gen 1 or why TAS, or all those parts. So I
Right.
think these three are the hygiene broad areas that one should cover before going to these interviews.
Right. And stressing on the point which was mentioned by Jay and seconded by you, Naman, is talking to seniors. Uh, I remember for a lot of these companies, people used to meet the seniors who had a BPO or who had worked in these companies, and used to discuss with them that what are the issues they faced, what are their learnings from the company, etc. What are the kind of people they look like, they want. So I think it's a very, very important thing which you should 100% do, because you'll get an idea about what kind of questions they ask, or what kind of people they want. So definitely do that. Apart from that, as Naman mentioned, research about the company, and also be aware of some general news which is happening. You could be asked, and obviously HR questions will be there for every company which you appear for. Be it your strengths, weaknesses, where do you want to be in 5 years, etc. These are typical questions which you should be aware of, irrespective of the domain which you are preparing for.
Also,
Right.
if I could add to this, it is always good to know different businesses of that company. So, like if, most likely all these big houses will ask you what, specific business unit you want to be part of and why.
Right.
So you should be able to list down, say, 5 top business unit of the company, and which is your priority and why is that your priority. And there could be a twist question that what if we haven't opened a role in that business unit. Are you looking for something else, or are you very specific? So you have to devise your answer accordingly.
Right. This is actually very important. Sometimes they ask you simple questions as name 5 of our companies which are not core companies. In Tata Group, it's a famous question. Name 5 companies in which Tata name is not there. Answer that. No, you cannot say Tata Steel or Tata Motors or all of these companies. They ask you trick questions like that. So I think this is very important. In fact, talking to seniors help in another way where, so some of the hot topics in the company or hot areas in the company, they are not in the news. So what are the next moves for the company? So I mean, talking to seniors gives you a very a front running perspective on this thing, that what are the hot areas going on in the company. For example, in Tata Group right now, it's Air India. It's a very hot running company. The second is the Tata New, which is the new digital app they had launched. It's again, Tata Digital is a hotspot right now. The third, I mean, are these small startups which they recently acquired, one MJ Big Basket. No. So talking to seniors give you a very fair and ahead away in this area that what are the hot areas being in the company, and you can accordingly devise your whole preparation and strategy on these questions, like which company do you want to join in and why.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can have your preference for all these companies, but never be very stubborn with a
Right.
particular route or a particular company. Because
Yes.
they'll be very straight for that. I don't think that you're fit for a Reliance retail. Why don't you look for a Reliance Geo? And then it is very difficult for you to change your stand. So be vigilant of the fact that things can go south, and you have to prepare for all the different business units of that company.
And Genman is all about flexibility, so
Exactly.
don't be very rigid on something.
I mean, tying back to the point when I asked you that what are the skills which they look for, and you had mentioned flexibility as one of them, ties back to that question that you cannot be hell bent on joining XYZ company only. Great, guys. That was very, very helpful. I hope that helped the audience members as well. Let's now talk about what are the exit options. I mean, I know people have not even joined the school, but just understanding, from because you've been in the industry for some time, what are the kind of exit options which people can go for? Because I mean, why I'm asking this question is very simple, that many people might join, let's say, a Genman role and might think that, yeah, it's not the right fit for me. Yeah, maza nahi aaya, and maybe I want to leave this company. So what are the options which are available to them?
So
Again, Akshay, here we will talk about flexibility again. Yeah, Naman.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
so Akshay,
ahead.
again, we talk about flexibility here. I mean, if you have worked in a prodman role for a good 2 years, and then you think that, this is something which I'm not very good at, I don't enjoy it, you can always move to consulting or, marketing or marketing manager, say. So because you have a profile of a gen man, very easy to move across, different roles and different businesses. But if you're stick to say one role in a particular business for a good 5-7 years, it is difficult. The earlier you understand this is not an equation, the better it is for you.
Right. The other thing is that we need to understand what do we mean by exit option. An exit option may be with regard to industry or a role, and that means switching internally within the group itself. So say I'm working in Tata Steel, I'm not liking, I feel that steel is not a cup of my tea, and I don't want to do it for life, because I mean, this is a very industry specific thing. Then I may look at certain other industries within the group itself. Within the group, switching is very easy compared to switching outside when you want to change industry. If you want to switch outside, I mean, you'll be limited to applying to steel companies. But when you switch inside the group itself, I mean, you can switch, I mean, from A to Z, I'd say. So there's no limitation on that. When we talk about switching outside the group itself, say you get better opportunities outside the group. I think that really depends from role to role. Say you are working in, say, category management role in e-commerce, say Tata Click, and you get a better opportunity in Amazon. I think that's very easy. And these programs, the legacy of these programs acts as an engine to it. So say all these programs are, say, 50-60 years old. TAS is a 70-year-old program. So I mean, it has brand value in the market, or he was a TAS officer, and that really adds as an engine, pushing while having some exit options.
Yeah, I think totally agree with Naman and Jay. Like, especially as Naman said that, internal switching options are there for sure. So, I mean, that's the advantage of being in a conglomerate, is that, where if you're not interested in the industry that you're currently in, you have so much to choose from, right? And especially there, building networks during your 1 year stint, that helps a lot, because then people really know that, you can add value as an employee in that, industry as well. So that is definitely one good exit option. But otherwise, I mean, people who I know who have left these kind of programs, they honestly have a lot of doors open for them, because as Namana and Jay both said that, you get that brand tag on your name. So, people immediately know that, that you are a person that they would want to hire. And another advantage is that you can shift to any different kind of industry. So you're not, specifically limited by, the industry that you join in. So that's a big advantage.
Right. I think the point about internal switching is quite interesting, because I mean, if you talk about Mahindra, they have a holidays, they also have a financial company, they also have an automobile company. So there are so many different options you have internally, that you can internally switch itself if you're not interested in one particular industry.
Right, and it's not just about industry, but with regard to role as well. My senior at Taj Hotels, she was in an HR role in an hospitality industry. She just switched to Chroma in a business development role. So 4 years in HR and now business development. So switching domains as well is very easy internally, I'd say.
That's wonderful. I think that's the beauty of programs like the Reliance Leadership Program, TAS or GMC, because they give you so much flexibility. It's wonderful. And one more point which you raised, Naman, which I completely agree with, is that the brand value. I think everyone knows about these roles, right? Somehow they are not still that popular, I think, when it comes to students coming in. But I think those who have passed out, I think, know about these roles completely. So, also what we should do is also let's talk about what are the pros and cons of such roles. So, as you mentioned, maybe the brand value is very good. Any other pros which come to your mind?
I think for me, the biggest pros was I was a fresher. I wasn't really very sure of which industry or which domain I would like. I really had no clue. Maybe
Right.
at this point also, I may not have an absolute clue, but I still have a fair idea after working 1 year in different companies. So in my first and when I worked at Tata Steel, it's a behemoth giving a $5 billion profit every year. It's a big company, and then the next stint immediately was Tata Click. It's a startup. So
Right.
to get that exposure of various size companies and to realize where you fit in, and then I realized, and I think I belong more to a startup like culture in Tata Click because I like that fast and frugal culture. If I want something now 2 hours away, it will be live on website. So I like that kind of thing, and all this you realize only after you work in it, I'd say. You know, there's a limitation on what you hear from the seniors or what you research on the internet, but Genman really provides you this thing that you get to explore various things and you get to realize yourself that where do you fit in. So I think that was the biggest pros for me.
It's interesting that you are working in a startup inside the Tata Group. This
Right.
quite interesting. Great, guys. So let's move on to the last question, which is what are some pointers which you want to give to the incoming batch of MBA students so that they can get into their dream Genman role? What are some advice? Here you can give full gyan.
I think one important advice is get your hands dirty during the first 3-4 months. Try on to different things. I mean, get into a community, get into a committee, work on case studies, look for internships in your first 3 months, and do everything that you can. I mean, even if you sucked at it during your grad, it is okay. Try again and redo things, because what you do in the first 3 months will very heavily define your career henceforth.
I completely agree to what Jay said. Actually, in first 3 months of B school, people are usually just focused on getting an internship. That internship is their sole focus. बस internship मिल जाए, they'll prepare for internship, they'll put academics in backseat, they'll put other things in backseat. And I'll tell you, I didn't put any of those. In fact, I put them on the front seat. So case competitions was on the first seat in my first 3 months, and that's how I backed the internship. I didn't sat in the normal placement process. When everybody was focused on and certain case competitions are just for first years, and that's really the charm
Right.
for that. And when you really focus on that, when nobody is focusing, that means you are way ahead of the race already. So I completely agree to Jay that get your hands dirty in multiple things. You know, and when I say get your hands dirty, I'd say it after getting the program as well. You shouldn't wear that badge on your shoulders that he's a TAS officer and he'll do the certain standard quality of work. Get your hands dirty in everything, and that's really where you learn stuff.
Right. Absolutely. So that because we mentioned committee, let's maybe spend some time on that. Because a very typical question people ask is which committee should I join? Committee का कोई फायदा भी होता है क्या? ठीक है. So in my opinion, what I normally tell everyone is that if you don't have a very strong CV, if you really want to stand out, join the Placecom or the student council. Other than that, if you join any other committee, do it just out of sheer love for that activity. That's my view. What are your views, guys?
Adding to what you said, Akshay, very important. So these committees act as a family, at your B school, because you're so away from your real family. You always need a group of people to help you, support you in things and push
Right.
you beyond your boundaries. So these committees, if you are in good terms, will actually help you become a better person. They help you share their views on a case competition, take interviews of each other before, your internships begin, and so on and so forth. So good to have a committee, irrespective of what committee it is. Yeah, I mean, there are a few committees which are preferred more than the other ones, but always good to have a committee because two things. One is you network, you share information and learn. And second, a very heavy point of responsibility, a position of responsibility in your CV. So that always adds value.
I'd second this because committee. I think there are three broad pros of committees. The first one is obviously it helps in CV. So if you have a somewhat weak CV, the committee really pushes the CV up. But the second is the networking part, as Jay mentioned. When you are in certain committees, especially the high visibility committees, say the student council or the placements committee, or say in IMK we had backwaters and cultural committee where you're organizing big events. You get to interact with multiple stakeholders at the admin level, at the community level, at the student level. So I mean, you really get that exposure in networking. The third is the learning itself. So when you're organizing, say, a 50 lakh budget event, just 10 of you for a crowd of say 3,000 people, that itself is a great learning exposure. I mean, I don't think even in corporate you'll get to manage say an event worth 3,000 people. So that is the skill, and it's one of a kind skill, and one in a lifetime skill. I'd say that you learn in college only. And in corporates you don't really get to have an event management kind of thing. When you call speakers, and you do that at least in the early stages.
True. I mean,
see, Akshay, in your role, you can work on case, you can have case discussions, and you can solve problems. But the committee part is very integral part of MBA, which most of you will not have it in your corporate life.
Definitely.
So live it, I guess.
Another thing I'd say very frankly is that don't get bogged down by certain committees or this committee. Like place com, I don't want to apply and those. I still remember Akshay, when I asked Akshay in my first year, what committee should I join? And he straightforwardly put out two committees: join student council or placements committee. I mean, they're really good committees and you get them acceptable there. But when we hear from our batchmates, oh no, placements committee, you need to work 24 hours, you have to be on toes, you don't interact with your batch. Please keep all those things aside. Just look at your exposure and your learning. Where you learn the most. I think definitely I'd say this on point that placements committee is definitely one of the committees where you learn the best, I'd say.
So adding on to this, I remember I think most people would hate the place com in the first
right.
Would hate them. Okay. But when you and then we wonder why they get the best jobs. So why do they get better jobs? Not the best, better jobs. But I think once I joined Deloitte and when I looked at it from a recruiter's perspective, so they are people who are talking to corporates day in, day out. They are managing them, and hence they do have a slight edge above others because of the skills they've developed doing that. Plus, as a B schooler, that वो बंदा 15 घंटे काम करेगा, बाकी करे कि नहीं करे वो करेगा. So even though I hate them, but you have to respect them as well.
Definitely. I mean, there's a myth that place comms do something and they get better jobs, but it's simply because they're better people and they have better skills that they developed during this place com. They went through that rigorous process of selection and they are basically the cream.
Right. Great, guys. That was very helpful. So the major takeaway from this for the incoming batch is get your hands dirty. As Jay rightly put, get your hands dirty, join committees, try for live projects, do competitions, focus on these things. Because if you let's say are able to get a good exposure in the first 3 months, you're able to kill it in the first 3 months, your entire MBA could be sorted. Because एक बार you get a PPO, उसके बाद second year तो बहुत chill है. I had a PPO, I know. I'm telling you, life is very chill in the second year once you have a PPO. And I think, Naman, you also had a PPO. Yeah, did you also have a PPO?
Yeah, I also had a PPO.
Yeah.
Great. And I think I know that even Kanika had a PPO.
Yeah. Yes.
And once you do competition and if you directly get through in that, even your first year is sorted. I mean, you don't sit for the final placements if you get in summers through good competition.
So Akshay, once you have a PPO, it is very easy to focus on other things because mentally you're free.
Right.
Focus on swimming, focus on running, do whatever you want. But don't screw up your curriculum.
Take out your MBA fees from good case competition. You can really focus on those.
Exactly. And then you can do other things like watch good game shows. I watched Game of Thrones in the second year. That's what I did. Okay, guys, thank you so much. A big thank you to the panelists, for taking out time on a Sunday. I know that Naman is out of town. Kanika is out of town. They took our time. Jay is here for the second time. Appreciate the effort. Really, thank you. I'm sure it helped the viewers a lot. I'm very sure about it. Thank you to the viewers as well for tuning in on a Sunday. We hope that you enjoyed it. Please do tune in next week, same time, where we discuss product management tools and how you can get those dream product management tools on campus. That is what we'll discuss next time. So guys, stay tuned, and we hope that you enjoyed it. Take care and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Akshay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Akshay.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye, guys.
Bye.